with that, you've probably encountered text wrap in one of the tutorials that you might have done. So for example, you might have done something like this, and in a particular cell what we want to do is use that wrap text, and you can see the effect that it has. It puts the first word on the first part of the line of the row and the second one down at the bottom. Okay, so that's quite a nice effect that you might need. Only problem with this is, look what happens if I decide I want to make this column a little bit wider. I've lost my wrap text. It says it's wrapped, but it's actually only dependent on the width of that column. I've got to get it just right. And what happens if I don't particularly want that column to be that width? Bit of a nuisance. Okay, so I've got a much better way that I want you to do it. And the way I would like you to do it is you type in your first particular word, in this case word first. What I do now is I hold down my Alt key and I hit enter. See how it drops the cursor down to the bottom? And now I can type in my second word. Now the advantage of doing it this way is, look, it doesn't matter how wide, how narrow I make that column, it keeps to that effect that I'm wanting. Alright, so you would think you've done it exactly the same way, but problem with that way? No problem with that way. Okay, let's just recap. Let's just do that one once more. So I put in my first word, and then it's Alt Enter, second, Alt Enter. I can keep on going, but it doesn't matter how wide, how narrow I make the column, it's exactly as I want. Okay, so that's the first thing I wanted to show you. Second thing I wanted to talk about is using your AutoFill handle. Now once again, you've probably encountered this in one of the tutorials, but I really need to make sure that you know just what a fantastic little feature this one is. So if I start off and I type in, say, the word January, now what's really important in Excel is what your cursor looks like. See how it's a white cross at the moment? When I point up to any of my tabs or any button in the ribbon, it changes to a little upward pointing arrow. You already know, don't you, that if you put it in between your columns, you get your double-headed arrow, and you can change your column width. And same with your rows, double-headed arrow, and you can change your row height. Okay, now remember that you have in Excel, you have one particular cell which is called your active cell. You know it's an active cell because it's got a border around it, and also the address of the active cell is in this area over here, the name box. That tells me I'm in A1. Tells me I'm on G9. Okay, so that always reflects where I currently am in my name box. Important to remember that. Your active cell, hang on, let's just make this a bit bigger. Active cell, you've got the border around it, but can you see over here there's this little black square in the bottom right corner, and when I point to that it changes to a black cross, and when I drag it across, what I'm doing then is using my AutoFill. Okay, it works also with the days of the week, and I can AutoFill down. It does it in exactly the same format as I put it. So if I decided I want it in capitals, and I'm going to be putting the abbreviations, for example, it will make sure that every month of the year is also in capitals and it's abbreviated. Okay, but you can do other things with your AutoFill. It's really useful for repeating. So just say you've got a particular word that you want to repeat. I can then AutoFill and drag it down and drag it across if I wanted to do something like that. Same with numbers. Just say I want a whole lot of 22s. I can get them. I can select 3 rows and I can drag them across. Okay, so it's a really good way of getting some repetitive text. But what it's also good for doing is setting up a series. So if I went 1 and then 2, now if I select both of those and then use the AutoFill handle and drag it down, you can see what it does. Excel realizes that I wanted to count up by ones. Let's start it off now with a 5 and then a 10. If I select both cells, that sets up my series going up in 5s. Use my autofill and it keeps on going up in 5s. Okay, so two very